Good morning and welcome to our monthly safety update here at Safety Action. So I'm Gary Rowe, CEO of Safety Action. I'm glad you could make it to join us this morning. And if any of your colleagues aren't able to make it, we record these and upload these brief sessions to our website. They only take about 20 minutes, half hour, so usually over morning coffee or tea. It's maybe something you can have your morning tea and listen to some good safety tips and updates of news. So let's kick off with our session today. And what I'd like to share with you, bear with me, I'll just get this updated. There we go. So I'd like to share with you today is safety near mobile equipment. May seem pretty obvious, but I want to share a couple of experiences and things with you. Safety versus leadership. And last month we explained how values drive culture. We're just going to build on that concept this morning and also touch on our human error workshop coming up later this month. So first, I'd like to ask a question. It's a rhetorical question because I don't expect you to either call in or even on the chat line to convey your answer to me on this. But my question is, what common factor precedes almost all accidents? So you might don't contact me at the moment because it's a bit of a rhetorical question, but maybe write the answer down now on a piece of paper in front of you. So write down, what do you believe is a common factor that precedes almost all accidents? While you're thinking about that, on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a truck and some rubbish on the ground, and it is rubbish. It's a waste transfer station. And what most of the commercial operators and even council operators tell us is you cannot make money taking away waste. So what a lot of particularly the commercial operators do is they spread out the waste on a concrete pad. This one's outdoors. The better ones, the bigger ones, will be indoors, so the workers have a bit of protection from the weather and the elements. And they spread the waste out and sort into recyclables, whether it be timber, bricks, concrete that has to go to a separate waste, and general waste. So they're trying to add some value to the waste stream. So this is what they're doing. And you'll see a little bobcat in the bottom left-hand corner. What I can share with you is that the scene you're looking at here was the scene of an unfortunate tragic accident a number of years ago in Victoria, where the team, there's about 4 or 5 people work at this site, shared the job of driving the bobcat, so they were all operating the bobcat. There's no one bobcat operator. So, and unfortunately, one of the workers was run over and killed at this very scene that you're looking at here. So this is what drives my thought and concerns about safety near mobile equipment. And so the answer, if you've read any of Sidney Decker's books, and he's written a lot of great material, I love it. And what he explains is normal work precedes almost every accident. You know, we often see movies and television where they dramatise leading up to an accident. And it infers that there's almost always something that would give you warning. A machine will be overrunning in speed. There will be burning and friction on bearings, overheating, squealing noises. They dramatise all of this. And you know what? Through almost every workplace accident I've been involved in, there's been none of that. What the workers are doing is they've come to work as they normally do. They're doing their normal job in the normal way. And unfortunately, what they haven't recognised is that most people don't see the danger when they're working near mobile plant and vehicles. Something that I realised fairly quickly in my career as a safety engineer, when I commenced nearly 30 years ago at the Department of Agriculture as their safety engineer, was that it's got nothing to do with speed of machinery or size of the machinery, it's the power. And often even slow moving equipment is deadly because it simply has the weight and the power that if it is to strike you, it's going to continue on and cause severe injury. So maybe some of the scenes you just see here down the left of the screen at the moment, person, probably the driver of the truck, standing right beside his truck, as they often want to do, because they feel they need to guide the crane or forklift when they're in close proximity to their truck. However, if the load is to shift or fall, they're in the danger zone. Other people may feel the need to step in. They'll get their hands caught underneath the load. So these are the sorts of risks that most people don't see as a risk. I think the chap in that scene there sees it as a normal task. He's just standing there leaning on the truck. The next scene, somebody walking through a warehouse. This is about traffic management, and I'll show you in a moment some of the things to consider. And you'll see the image below. Where possible, let's separate all pedestrians behind barriers is our goal, if we can, around particularly forklift trucks and other mobile plant and equipment should be our goal. And obviously safe road crossings, particularly on our sites. So the risk does not always come from the mobile plant themselves. It could be the loads are shifted on the truck during transport, or the fall causing many of the accidents. So this is something I've mentioned. I've mentioned the drivers often want to be close to their truck. We have to establish and enforce pedestrian and driver exclusion zones during loading and unloading. And it is not acceptable for the driver to stand there and guide the forklift driver. They've got to be clear of the load such that they will not be struck should the load shift or fall, but there could be other mobile plant equipment operating on that same site. I recommend that wherever you have forklifts and cranes operating, that you have a lift plan for both routine and ad hoc tasks. If you don't know what a lift plan is, that means you don't know enough about it to actually prepare it. So talk to your licensed lift and forklift operators who should understand that from their training. If not, give us a call. So you need a lift plan. And because it's not unreasonable for somebody to ask, particularly after an accident, can I have a copy of your lift plan for this particular lift? So particularly if it's a major ad hoc thing, you would actually maybe have a handwritten lift plan for how you're going to manage this, who's going to be involved, and obviously the separation of pedestrians. So much of what we're just talking about here gets built into your traffic management plan. So every site that you're involved with should have a site traffic management plan. It should run from the front gate to the back gate, indoors and outdoors, wherever vehicles, mobile plant, forklifts and trolleys operate. You should have a plan that if I was to front up to the front gate, if I was a visitor, I can see your rules. What do you want me to do as a visitor entering the site? The first one is, if you don't have a speed limit on your private property, don't assume I know what speed or try and tell me I broke your speed limit if it's not posted at the gate. So every entrance to your site needs to have a speed limit as a minimum, preferably one-way traffic throughout your site. So ideally each gateway is either an in or an exit gate. That would be preferred. We know we can't achieve this on all sites, particularly historical sites where we've been here for a long time. We never had that level of traffic, and we need to share an in and out gate at the same area, but we still need controls. You need to guide me where I need to go and where not to go on your site. So that's about traffic management plans. And if you're looking for additional resources, WorkSafe have published, particularly WorkSafe Victoria, have a number of excellent documents on traffic management and mobile equipment. And they've even funded Monash Accident Research Centre to prepare a very extensive traffic management plan, lots of excellent diagrams, templates and images showing you what you can do. And it's quite amazing, if you haven't given it much thought, as to how you can separate pedestrians in your workplace when you give it a bit of thought. Having said that, and I've mentioned this to a number of good friends recently, traffic management is actually far more exhaustive than you would probably think from a distance. And people think, oh, this is a fairly simple task, we can do this fairly quickly. It's often quite iterative because there's no one plan that will work, and you don't overinvest in money in barriers and signage and then find you've got to change it. So people tend to prepare a draft, maybe trial it out with witches' hats and tape and temporary signage and test that it's actually working and does the job that you want it to do, and then move on to reinforcing that with more permanent signage. So there's safety near mobile plant and equipment. It's interesting that people think about it's okay to approach. In fact, there's often a need to approach a crane lift or a forklift for some reason, but you need to have this built into your plan, what circumstances they can approach and ensure that it's safe. So as hopefully you do know, for example, if it is we're craning a load off a truck, so for example, in mobile equipment, that no person is ever allowed to be under a suspended load. So this is just a general principle. So we should understand that. So if we have a need to approach, we might need to put stands under that load so the person can approach, inspect something about the equipment or adjust something on it, but safely in case the sling or the crane, for whatever reason, failed. So just a little bit on, if you like, a mobile safety of pedestrians near mobile plant and equipment, which featured in our newsletter this month. Later this month, we've got our human error workshop coming up, and unfortunately, Dr. Todd Bentley is unavailable to deliver it now, and he was the one who developed the workshop for us and was going to deliver it. He's changed roles and he's unable to do this now, but Dr. Stephen Webber of our team has stepped in and he's going to deliver it as scheduled. So it's a short, sharp, succinct workshop on human error, which Todd titled, Oops, How Did That Happen? Which I think is a terrific title, so that makes you think this is the sort of stuff that is happening all the time. And the principles are, we all make mistakes. So how have we built our work environment and our procedures to cope with the fact that we all make mistakes? And how do those things how do those mistakes come about? And what can we do to help improve, if you like, human error and human behaviour? So, and get to the real root causes. So that workshop's on Wednesday, the 28th of April. If you haven't registered, we are limited because we've got the COVID space restrictions in our conference centre. So it's only a short 2-hour session. It was designed to be face-to-face, which is why we're not running it online, by the way. So if you're interested in that and you haven't registered, feel free to contact our office, email us, or call. Oh, our next topic, leadership versus authority. And as I've mentioned, last month we explained how values drives culture in the business. So let's continue on now and look at this leadership versus authority. And what I've observed in my working career is that when you talk about good safety leadership, some managers and supervisors interpret that to mean I have to be tough, I have to be inflexible with the safety rules, and I'm going to punish people if I find them breaking my rules. And all of those things have a place, by the way, but let's get this in balance. So good safety leadership is not necessarily any of those things. So it may be a few other things, but this particular topic is about understanding a bit more about why we behave the way we do. And it may not be as obvious as you think it is. We often find it's comforting to think if there's a difficult person, we think it's them, it's not us. So there's the first thing. So if there's unreasonable or irrational behaviour, it's almost certainly we will interpret that it was the other person. Interestingly, when interviewing spectators, they can't tell who was the one who was irrational. Isn't that interesting? So it comes back to that old statement, never argue with an idiot, because bystanders can't tell which one was the idiot, because unfortunately you end up with irrational type comments to deal with those people if you're trying to argue with them. And another observation which I found rather interesting, because we often think we're in control of our behaviour, and I don't know if you've ever noticed if somebody's made an uncharacteristic outburst, and you would say, oh, well, that was the emotion. And people see this at sporting events, political rallies, religious rallies. There's all sorts of things where people get caught up in the emotion of the event, and later on, if shown a video or told what they did or said, they can't explain it easily. So this is something where we think we're in control, but in fact we as humans, we live on the surface of our emotions. And part of what I'm talking about today comes from a book by Robert Greene, and he talks about the laws of human nature. And I found some aspects of this very helpful and actually great connection with safety leadership, which is what we're interested in. And in particular, I find this to be so true. We have so many opportunities now to stream television. We only watch what we want when we want to watch it. Same on our iPhone. We get the news channels, the news feeds, the Twitter, only from the sources that we like. So in fact, what we're now doing is we're selecting all the sources of information that actually feeds our own personal bias. So in fact, we're compounding. We're not open to other sources of news, often in terms of social media these days. And what we don't realise what we've done. And so Greene suggests if you're feeling superior, and this is not you, that's the first sign of the irrational mind at work. And so finishing off on this brief little segment, Greene, in fact, I can remind you, the good leaders have clear values and a strong sense of purpose. And as you'll have noticed in our newsletter article, we've suggested good safety leadership courses as something to consider for your team. Everyone does the standard safety training. We get it, we need it, we know about it. You've got to know the safety laws and rules. We've got to know the codes. You've got to be inducted into the company policy and procedure. All absolutely necessary. But what it doesn't do is teach leadership. And that is how I should behave and how do we change behaviours. So if you're interested and you want to know a little bit more about Safety Action's safety leadership courses, and we have some excellent short for executive teams, anything from half a day through to 2 or 3 day safety leadership courses. So something to consider. Benchmarking safety performance. We mentioned last month, this is back on this year. We've had a 2-year gap now since we ran the last benchmarking survey. So we really do want all of our readers and listeners to participate this year. And not only for you to participate, but I want you to encourage appropriate friends and businesses that you know that would have good data, would have some data, and to participate in this survey. Clearly, if you're a small business office-based, you know you're low risk, you have almost no data. We understand that. However, we've got a category for offices as well, and clearly the data that we get should reflect that they are low risk and that they're performing well. But if not, we'll find out through the survey. So it's going to run in July this year, so we've got a couple of months leading up to it yet. We're going to collect similar data to we have in previous years, which includes loss data, which is your normal lag indicators, number of lost time injuries, number of medical treatment injuries, etc. Some positive performance indicators, which we call lead indicators. That is the percentage of safety inspections conducted on time, how quickly corrective actions are corrected or on schedule. So we indicate this in the data that we'll send out. We'll update our website shortly to show you the form. It's very simple. largely on one page, but it'll now be on the back of that page. I'll be one page double-sided to collect the data, quite simple. We want everyone to participate, as I've mentioned, and we really would like you to encourage all of your colleagues to participate this year. The more data we get in, the better and more accurate the benchmarks are. So throughout the year, I have friends occasionally contact me and say, Gary, what's the average LTI rate in Australia? What's the average LTI rate in a particular industry? And you'd be surprised, not all authorities, safety authorities, have this data, because what they're largely collecting is remuneration data. They don't actually know, because an LTI is not a notifiable incident in itself. So therefore they don't actually know that. They certainly don't know the number of medical treatment injuries. They might know the costs that are associated. They won't know, and certainly will have no idea of first aid injuries or other lead indicators that you've got. So you can't get everything from the normal safety authorities in each state in this area. So we need to conduct surveys like this, and we need your support. So, as we've said, we like to keep these monthly briefings short and sharp, 20 minutes to a half hour. But just before I leave you, I'd like to just touch on a couple of things for next month. You might find this interesting. Best practice work permits. Now, in a previous session, I've covered SWMS, Safe Work Method Statements. And in that, we explained that a very long SWMS is evil, because what you're doing is hiding all the good information about what the hazards of the task are and what are the controls. And similarly, we find with work permits, we find they're very long, 4, 5, 6, 8 pages long. Once again, workers in the field will not have a copy of that, will not be interested in all of the bureaucratic information that's contained in them. And so just as a lead up to next month, we're going to show you how to write these one-page permit. That's it, one-page permit. And I will, on the back of that one page, we'll show you a safety checklist, depending upon the subject, for what you'll actually run through the key safety issues before you issue the permit. But that should be your goal, a one-page work permit if you've got work permits. Also, increasingly, businesses are not only racking things as they always have in storage, but going higher and higher. And this is just being efficient with the space you've got. So the higher you go, and the increased loads and the increased traffic in your storage areas and warehouses, the increased risk of rack damage and rack collapses. So we're going to look at rack safety next week as well, and safety inspections the right way. And this sort of follows on from the first two topics there, work permits and rack safety. So we're going to show you what should and should not be in, say, a weekly or a monthly safety inspection. And that's what we mean by doing it the right way. So thank you very much for joining us for this short, sharp session today. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time for our next webinar, which is scheduled for Tuesday, the 11th of May, 2021. Thanks once again, everyone. Speak to you soon. If you've got any questions, email or call our office at any time, and we'll respond, and we can even include them in future sessions. And I also may say, if you've got a topic you would like us to feature here in our monthly webinar, just send us a note, and it certainly we'll look at that and see if we can build that in and cover something and provide you with some interesting background that you may not have thought of previously. So thank you once again. We'll see you next month. Bye.